Hey guys, welcome to the AafkeArt studio. Today we're going to talk about horses' legs. We're going to talk about how the legs actually look, how they work. We are going to talk a little bit about anatomy because it'll make your drawing so much better. Just to make things easier, I also have a model right here in the studio. Let's get started. So I am using crystal paper and I got my Tombow dual brush pens. Okay, we've got our paper and I'm using the light gray to make a quick outline of the front part of a horse. And in my mind, I imagine this line and I'm drawing it now in short bits, which is where the bones already are. And then I draw the outline of the horse's leg around those lines. So I'm speeding this up now. I really quick draw the bones in. And then I'm going to do the same thing from the front. So the front of the horse, I draw another leg just to make it more clear. These are the bones and then the other leg. So we're taking the black marker now. And this is the shoulder blade, the scapula, and on top is a ridge of cartilage. And there's a huge ridge on this bone, and that's for the attachment of muscles. Now we go to the humerus, or the upper arm. This bone is hidden behind layers of muscles. And the elbow of the horse is the same as our elbow. So we've got the radius and the ulna. The ulna is just this small bone here, but it's important because there are muscles attached. And then the ulna goes down to the knee, which is our wrist. Lots of small bones here. These bones allow the horse to bend the leg in a very acute angle. Then we go down to the cannon bone. The cannon bone is a metacarpal bone in our hand. And then we go to the pastern and the heel. And these are phalanges. And then there's a bone inside the hoof. And this little bone carries all the weight of the front of the horse. And then these same bones seen from the front. So, forearm or radius, the knee, cannon bone, pastern, and the hoof bones. And then the humerus moves backwards where it attaches to the shoulder blade. Again, if you want to see the shoulder blade of a horse, let it eat and then you can actually almost feel the ridge. And then there's muscles in the forearm, but there's no muscles below the knee. There's only tendons and bone. And skin on top of them. Until you reach to the hoof, which got its own mechanism of cushioning and a keratin sheath, which is the hoof that we see. So you see all that weight of the horse rests on those 4 small bones. Inside the foreleg are not a lot of muscles. Most of the muscles are on the outside. And no muscles from the knee downwards. And then we've got some chest muscles. And we've got the big hoof underneath. Okay, now let's have a look at the hind leg of the horse. Again, I make a thin outline in a light gray. I'm quickly drawing the spine here. The spine goes all the way down through the tail. And I'm doing another sped up one. Just really quickly the bones in light gray. Let's get the black pen and do the real thing. So this is the point of the hip and it's part of the pelvis. This is a huge bone and it's got a lot of ridges and surfaces for muscle attachment. Because when you look at it, you see these are just the bones of the horse's leg. And all that mass that you see in a real horse, it's all muscles and intestines in this part of the body. So now we draw the femur. It's another big bone with lots of shapes and ridges for muscle attachment. Now this bone is completely hidden inside the body, you can't see it. But what you can see is, and this we call it the stifle, but this is really the knee, is the patella. So if the horse moves its leg forward like this, the patella literally sticks out. And then we get the tibia, it's our lower leg, and we get to the heel, and there's this bone, it's called the tarsus. This is very important, it's got a huge tendon attached to it, which you can see very well in almost all horses. And then we go to the cannon bone, which is a metatarsal bone in our hand. And the cannon bone has got two splint bones on either side. Those are remnants of earlier versions of the horse when the horse had more toes, and they have basically no function except there's a little bit of attachment of muscles on them. And then you go down to the cannon bone and the phalanges, which will end in the hoof. This is the hip bone that sticks out in most horses. And then there's all these muscles, but you can see, like I said earlier, you can see the patella. And then there's some bones, but mostly tendons in the upper part of the leg. And of course, below the hock, there are no muscles, just tendons, bone and skin. So this joint here is where the leg, the hind leg, moves forwards and backwards. And it can be drawn up by the knee. So if we draw a horse from the back, now let's move the tail away. These are the same bones, right? These are the femur attached to the pelvis. Now remember, this bone is moving forward. And then we get the tibia, which is moving backwards towards us. Same bone. And that ends up in the calf skin. We want to remember the tarsus. This is a really important bone because you can see it from the outside of the body. This is the tarsus, and it's got this huge tendon attached to it. If you have a real horse, you can actually put your fingers past that tendon before the bone starts, and you can feel that there's only skin between your fingers. Quite fascinating. Okay, and then we go further down. The cannon bone, the fetlock, the pastern, and we end up at the navicular bone. So here you can see how thin the legs are compared to the rest of the body of a horse. So now we go to the other leg, which is the outside only, no bones. You see these lines, those are the tendons, and then I draw this lump, which is the tarsus bone, and I do the hock joint goes around that, and then I draw one line for the tendon that goes down to the fetlock. Then I draw the pastern and the hoof, and a little bit of shade underneath the fetlock. Now, if you look at these legs, especially at the hocks, you can see that they are pointing a little bit outwards. These legs are not straight, they are in an angle, because in front of those hind legs there is a huge belly. Now let's have a look at our studio model. This is a prior horse, a vintage one. While not perfectly anatomically correct, it's a pretty good example. Look at this nice hoof, pastern, cannon, knee, forearm, elbow. That's a really nice shape. I especially love how they did the pasterns and the hoofs. So when we look at our model from the top, you have a nice view of the belly and the hind legs, and you can see how it would be impossible for the hind legs to really move forward. They have to go in an angle like this. I'll show it with a pen. It's somewhere like this, and in the same way the front legs tend to move slightly inward as they move forward, which you can see very well with a horse that's jumping if you have a picture from the front. So making the legs go straight is very unnatural. The same thing happens to the front legs. As the legs move backwards, they have to go past the belly too, in that case the rib cage, and as they move in front, the knees tend to come closer together. So if you see a horse jumping from the front, you will see that its front legs and the hooves touch sometimes, and the hind legs are drawn up but again slightly angled. If the legs move back, the hooves will come together again. The hind legs move outward as they move forward, and the front legs move inwards as they move forward. We do one more quick drawing of a horse that's resting on one hind leg, because in that position the way the hocks come together is more pronounced. You can also see that the hip of the resting leg is at a lower point, and I help myself by drawing a little line through the hip joints, the ones you can see. And then I draw that same line by the hocks, because the resting leg would have its hock also lower than the leg it's standing on. And the leg it's standing on is moved inwards because it's carrying all the weight. So now I take a black marker and I draw the final outlines. I like to emphasize the hip bones and the stifle. And then when I draw the back of the legs, I always draw a line that denotes where that big tendon goes and where the tarsus bone goes. And then I draw the hock around that. If you have a drawing with more detail, you would also draw lines for the tendons that go down the cannon bone. So if I draw the bones, you can see here how the knees or stifles move outward and the hocks move inwards. There's also a stronger angle, right? Because this leg has been moved inwards a little bit, because it's now carrying all the weight of the back end of the horse. So the point of this tutorial is that if you know how the legs work, how the bones are situated and which way they would naturally move, then you can draw a very naturalistic horse. And I tricked you, this was all about anatomy. Oh no, is the mic off? So by just realizing what goes on underneath the skin, it's so much easier to draw horses' legs. And if you have been drawing along and you want to share, I will put a link to my Facebook group underneath in the description. You can share your drawings there and also be part of a really nice equine art community. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe. And here you can see another video on drawing horses, and here is the playlist.